A bright start where we get a frost. Away from the frostier areas, still some cloud about for southern parts of the UK and more especially the east and the far north. Here, there'll continue to be showers, but this time the showers brought by an increasing northerly wind. As a result, it's going to feel cold on Tuesday afternoon. Temperatures on the thermometer, 7 or 8 in the south, 4 or 5 in the north, but take off a few degrees for what it will feel like in the wind, more like the low to mid single figures. And it turns even colder on Tuesday night. By midnight, the showers increasingly falling as snow at all levels for northern Scotland. The snow really building up here on Tuesday night and into Wednesday. There'll also be showers into the east of England, parts of Northern Ireland, where we see those showers coming and going. Perhaps some icy patches as we start off Wednesday. Certainly a widespread frost across western England, northern England, southern Scotland and Wales. -3, -4 Celsius in places. But a bright start in these locations. Plenty of sunshine through the day on Wednesday. Areas of cloud and showers affecting North Sea coasts, Irish Sea coasts, Northern Ireland. These will consist of rain and hill snow, but the snow across northern Scotland really building up. 2 to 5 centimetres at lower levels, 5 to 10 centimetres over the hills.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Steyn. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel. Hey, welcome along to Monday's edition of the Mark Steyn Show. The only problem is that we just don't have the great Mark Steyn himself, but rest assured he will be back very soon, folks. But for tonight, I regret to inform you that you are stuck with me, Patrick Christie. Tonight, we'll take a deep dive into the great lies that we are definitely being told by our leaders. Things like that all migrants crossing the Channel are nothing but women and children fleeing war-torn nations. like France, that COVID-19's origins were from bats or pangolins or whatever else, and any suggestion otherwise is nothing but a conspiracy theory. It turns out that conspiracy theory was right. Or indeed that big tech has the people's best interests at heart, that they aren't censoring you, absolutely not. They're definitely not rigging elections. No, oh wait, no, wait, they are. They absolutely are. Oh, and goodness me, what next, folks, eh? Women with penises? Oh, no, that's happening as well. Next, it'll be 2 + 2 = 5, won't it? Anyway, we will dig into all of that with a creme de la creme lineup of guests this evening. I am indeed fluent in French, in case you're wondering. But don't forget the most important part of the show, and that is you. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tweet me at gbnews. Whilst I'm standing in for Mark Steyn tonight, you will get the chance to pummel Patrick at the end of the show. Yeah, I know. Anyway, all that glorious stuff to look forward to after the news with even more glorious Tatiana Sanchez. Take it away, Tatiana.
Patrick, thank you very much. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. The RMT has announced an extra strike on Network Rail over the Christmas period. The union says rail staff will walk out from 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve until 6 a.m. on the 27th of December, with next week's strikes going ahead as planned. It said it will put the latest offer from Network Rail to its members with a recommendation to reject. Number 10 has called the current pay rise offer of 8% over 2 years fair, but the union has said the deal will lead to unsafe practices. GB News understands an 8th child has died after contracting Strep A. It follows a 12-year-old child being the first secondary school student to have died after contracting the invasive infection. The UK Health Security Agency confirmed a single case was identified at Colf School in South London. Downing Street is urging parents to be on the lookout for symptoms and say there are no shortages of antibiotics. More than 850 cases were reported in the week starting the 14th of November, compared to over 180 for the same period last year. The government says changes to the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill will place local communities at the heart of the planning system. Further amendments will be set out by the Levelling Up Department tomorrow. The government is also set to abolish compulsory house building targets following requests from Conservative MPs aiming to protect the environment. Supporters of the proposal say this would also ensure local communities aren't forced to accept unwelcome development. Alongside new measures in the bill, the government will also give councils the power to refuse further planning permission. Downing Street says it's confident the UK has sufficient energy supplies ahead of temperatures severely set to drop this week. A cold weather alert has been issued for England with severe conditions forecast from 6 p.m. Wednesday to next Monday. A yellow warning for snow has also been issued for northern Scotland, with temperatures expected to fall to as low as -10 overnight. Healthcare services are urging people to protect vulnerable and high-risk groups. Police say watches and jewellery were stolen during a burglary at footballer Raheem Sterling's home. The England forward's family came home to find a number of items were missing, but Surrey police say it's not clear when they were taken. Meanwhile, England is preparing to take on reigning champions France on Saturday in the World Cup after beating Senegal 3-0 last night. And the Speaker of the House of Commons, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, has declared the beginning of the festive period in Parliament with the lighting of the Christmas tree. MPs, peers and parliamentary staff were joined by the rock choir who sang Christmas songs including Carol of the Bells, which is based on a Ukrainian folk song. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's over to Patrick.
You are not mentally ill. You are not insane. I just thought I'd make that very clear from the start, because all too often these days our government, the global establishment, are telling you that you cannot believe what you can clearly see with your own eyes. The Channel migrant crisis, for example. We were told that these were all women and children fleeing war. Have a look at those boats. Fighting-age males a lot of the time, many coming from Albania, a safe country. We are told that they're fleeing conflict, that they're absolutely not economic migrants. And yet we can see with our own eyes that thousands of Albanians are coming here to work in the illegal drugs trade and send money back to their village, which is perfectly safe. We are being asked to believe that these people are victims of human trafficking and modern slavery, despite the fact that we know they pay people smugglers tens of thousands of pounds to transport them willingly across an entire continent, sometimes 2 continents, to come and join their friends and family who've already made the journey over here. We're being asked to believe that these people were brought here against their will, despite the fact that they don't want to go home when we offer them the chance to do so. We are being asked to accept that the British taxpayer can not only afford, but also has a moral duty to pay for people who are clearly not genuine asylum seekers to stay in 4-star hotels. We are being asked to believe that we can afford that, but at the same time, we're also being asked to believe that we all have to suffer a cost of living crisis, and there isn't any way that we can house homeless military veterans or subsidise the elderly with their heating bills. We are told that there are no public health and safety concerns when it comes to these illegal immigrants, despite the fact that both the Parsons Green bomber and the Liverpool Maternity Hospital bomber were indeed asylum seekers. And now we're seeing increases in the cases of diphtheria as well. And it emerged over the weekend that we now have an open-door migrant system, pretty much, with 2 of the world's largest terrorist hotspots, Afghanistan and Syria, as around 98% of asylum applications are granted, with reduced security checks on top of that. But that's all fine. That's all fine. And if you don't think it's fine, then you, my friend, are a racist. Talking of racism, we are being asked to accept that mass multiculturalism and extreme levels of racial diversity are completely enriching, that it is by definition a great thing. And yet, with our own eyes, we can see that not enough houses are being built, there are not enough school places, there are not enough doctors or nurses to look after everyone, and that we are making absolutely no attempt to do anything about that, as far as I can see. With our own eyes, we can see that our police forces are not tackling grooming gangs because they don't want to enrage the British Pakistani male population. With our own eyes, we can see that there is growing tensions between Hindu and Muslim populations in places like Leicester. Foreign, violent drama on the streets of Britain. We can see that. But we are not just being asked to ignore that. We are being asked to accept that the opposite is true. That places like Leicester are a multicultural paradise, despite the fact that there has just been race riots. When it came to coronavirus, we were asked to believe that a virus had jumped from a bat to a human at a wet market in China, in the exact same area as a massive virology laboratory that had been testing bat-related coronaviruses. We were asked to believe that a vaccine created in a matter of months and still in the trial phase was 100% safe. We were asked to believe that locking down to protect ourselves from COVID would all be worth it in the long run. And yet we could all see that COVID came from a Chinese lab, that the reality of it was being covered up, that the likes of Chris Whitty and Dr Fauci were, in my view, complicit in that cover-up, that the vaccine can be largely ineffective and can kill people, that locking down will absolutely ruin our economy and lead to more deaths than people would ever have died from the coronavirus itself. But of course, you're just a wacky, kooky conspiracy theorist if you think all of those things are true. And now it's all coming true, isn't it? We were asked to believe that Twitter was not censoring people with views that its liberal, rainbow flag-waving, polyamorous vegans didn't approve of. We could see it happening, but we weren't allowed to believe it. We, paradoxically, were asked to believe that Russia hacked Brexit and Trump's election win. Everybody's favourite journalist, Carol Massive Apology Cadwallader, kept banging on about it. Netflix did a documentary on it. But the reality is, yet again, that the opposite is true. They suppressed Hunter Biden's laptop, and his dad, who is obviously senile, was helped by Twitter to win the election. We all know that men are born with a penis and women are born with a vagina. We all know that children should not be able to make massive life decisions on their own because they are children. And yet we are also being asked to believe that men are women and women are men, and that a 4-year-old boy with autism should be allowed to change his gender. But more than that, much more than that, if you don't think that's OK, if you don't think that men should play in women's sports teams, a man with a massive penis should probably not be allowed to enter women's changing rooms, that a male rapist who now calls himself Cassandra should be allowed in a woman's prison, if you don't think that's OK, yeah, then you're the problem, apparently. You are apparently just a transphobe. A woman who changed her name to sound more African, who dressed up in traditional African clothing, who runs a charity that allegedly refuses to help white people and has a history of making baseless, unfounded claims against the royal family, deliberately made it difficult for an 80-odd-year-old woman to ask her where she was from. Well, she cried racism and the entire media just lapped it up. We know the truth there. We know this was a stitch-up, and yet people in the media are too scared to say that out loud. We are being asked to just believe the narrative. If you feel as though you're being asked to believe in things that you know aren't true, that's because you are. You are being asked to live in a virtual reality. We are being lied to about pretty much every major issue, as far as I can see, by pretty much every single major player. If you believe what's happening in the channel is wrong, that women are women and men are men, and that COVID was made in a lab, you are not a racist, transphobic conspiracy theorist. You, my friend, are actually most people. Well, there we go. Joining me now is Jonathan Gullis, the Conservative MP for Stoke-on-Trent North, and he joins me now. Jonathan, thank you very, very much. Look, I've obviously gone in strong there, and I make no excuses for that. I want to keep it relatively specific with you, and it's today emerged that, yes, yet again, a think tank has come out and said, well, maybe we need to do more to stop people coming across the channel, that maybe what we need to do is to actually get us out of the ECHR, and our Home Secretary said, oh, yes, all of this is lovely, you need to send people off to Rwanda, but yet again, nothing is really being done about this. And, Jonathan, I am sick and tired of being lied to. I don't know about you, but I certainly am. The fact is that the vast majority of people coming over here are not women and children fleeing war, are they?
No, you're right, Patrick. We know that 70% at least are men between 18 and 35 years old. So as you say, it's quite abhorrent that we have a situation where men, in particular single men, are choosing to illegally come to this country via safe third countries like France and putting humongous strains on our public services, as well as putting humongous strains on the public finances. You know, Stoke-on-Trent, Patrick, have banged on about it before. As being a member of the voluntary asylum dispersal scheme time and time again, Serco keeps dumping on this city time and time again, because what's got out of hand is that now, after having 800 people already here, we're now seeing 2 hotels, and I'm sure more to come, being used to house asylum seekers or supposed asylum seekers, and of course, most importantly, illegal economic migrants who have come here illegally. It's unacceptable. The people of Stoke won't put up with it any longer.
There's so many different ways that we are being gaslit, Jonathan, about what's going on in the channel at the minute. And I think one of the key ones is that we as a British taxpayer have some form of moral duty to help these people. And in reality, I'm sorry, I feel no moral compulsion whatsoever to try to help a man in his early 20s from an Albanian village who wants to come over here and sell drugs to people.
Well, you're totally right, Patrick. Let's not forget, a flight from Albania to the United Kingdom is remarkably cheaper than paying £5,000 or more to a people smuggler to illegally enter this country. If you're willing to pay 100 or 1,000 times more to be illegally smuggled into the United Kingdom rather than get a legal flight here, I suggest that you're a person who wants to avoid security services. I think we can all therefore raise our major concern about that.
And then the biggest gaslighting element about this altogether for me is this, which is to go, right, OK, we can't claim asylum. Well, I am the victim of modern slavery or human trafficking. You have paid to go there. It's like the equivalent of literally deliberately booking an Uber somewhere and then saying that you were brought there against your will, is it not?
Well, this is why the Centre for Policy Studies, I know it's a think tank, I know it's yet another report, but actually I think it's a very sound report, to be perfectly frank. I think a lot of stuff the government already knew and it should be cracking on and doing. We should be introducing this legislation tomorrow, to be perfectly frank. And you are right. Our modern slavery laws are extremely generous, overly generous, quite clearly, and being abused. And whilst, of course, we want to protect people who are being humanly trafficked and being used as modern slaves, if it's being abused in this way, then we have to obviously review the law and make sure it's a fairer system. Germany has a much stricter system than us, as do other mainland European countries. We should be trying to make it easier for people to illegally come to the United Kingdom.
But they try and silence you, though, Jonathan, don't they? And they try and silence me as well. They try and silence a lot of people who I would argue are relatively sound, which is this word racism, isn't it? And I will be absolutely amazed to learn how people can square that one, because we've got an ethnic minority Prime Minister, an ethnic minority Home Secretary. We're welcoming the highest ever level of net migration, the highest ever level of illegal migration. The British taxpayer is being asked to pay more than they ever have done for these hotels, etc. We are, by definition, not a racist country, and yet we're not allowed to have an opposition to this stuff for fear of being called racist, Jonathan.
You're totally right. Look, in Stoke-on-Trent, we've got a really great Pakistani and Kashmiri community who I'm really proud to work alongside by side with, who contribute an awful lot to our local culture as well as our local community, and have a large amount of them now at the elected as city councillors. This is great news. Without having to tick boxes, without having to virtue signal, this is just done because the great British people aren't racist. They just want control of their borders. And I don't understand how anyone can seem that racist. But the Labour Party, let's not forget, keeps selecting white men from North London as their leader. Seems to struggle even getting a woman to be a leader, let alone anyone from an ethnic minority background. So let's not take any lessons from the virtue signalling left, the wokerati who want to silence us on Twitter.
Yeah, and I've got serious concerns, right, that we are, as I alluded to in my monologue earlier, we are making no provisions, no massive provisions for the seriously high levels of legal migration and illegal immigration, so our public services, our housing stock, etc. And we are creating a situation where, in the words of a councillor from Lancaster, which has had its third migrant hotel plonked on it in the space of however long, that there is an inevitable conflict here. And that is not because the British public are racist. That's not because the British public don't like asylum seekers or refugees. That's because the British public, I think, don't like to be taken for a ride. And if they end up seeing hotels after hotels after hotels used at the expense of the taxpayer, the local economy, and a lot of these people, I think, are actually in a situation now where they do have different cultural norms, etc., that it is going to create a conflict. And then when that conflict happens, we'll be told, there you go, the far right's on the march.
Well, look, you're right, Patrick. This country, yet again, stands up to help the most vulnerable people around the world. We have those safe and legal routes directly from Afghanistan, from Syria, from Hong Kong, and from other parts of the world where we are seeing, obviously, major conflicts. So this idea that the United Kingdom doesn't reach out to help those in most in need is total and utter nonsense. But it's understandable when, for example, again, sorry to use Stoke-on-Trent as another example, but when they find out that 50 school places have now been procured and found in our city for children who are being housed in hotels, who have come here illegally with their parents, paying people smugglers to get them here, and you've got parents who are desperately trying to get those kids into those local schools because they might be some of the best schools in their local area, it might be nearer to their home, it might be a school with a child who's got learning needs from Stoke-on-Trent who needs to access the provision that school provides, but it's been told that there's no places available. Of course people are going to be outraged. 50 school places is a lot, and in a city where we've already got high pupil numbers per classroom, the last thing we need is to be adding to that load, adding to that strain.
It's just a general concern.
Unacceptable and unfair.
Yeah, Jonathan, look, thank you very much. Always an absolute pleasure. Jonathan Gullis there, who's MP for Stoke-on-Trent North. Good to see you. Up next, we're going to hear your thoughts on all of this madness, plus the one and only Dominique Samuels is here. Oh, there she is. Dominique Samuels is here. As more evidence emerges to support the once ridiculed Wuhan lab leak theory. Who would have thought it, eh? Don't you dare touch that dial, because I will be back in a tick.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Yes, OK, welcome back, everybody. Now, as Mr Steyn loves to say, GB News is the people's channel, so let's channel what the people have to say. And we asked you whether or not you are worried about the UK accepting 98% of asylum claims from Afghanistan, Syria and Eritrea. I've got some wonderful audience reactions here. Christine is on. Christine says, no, I'm not, as long as they are safety checked. Well, Christine, this is part of the problem, because we've now got a two-tier system with a massive backlog. Apparently, they're only doing the initial base of checks and not the other checks. She says, what I am against is a lack of infrastructure to properly manage or process the illegal immigrants coming over the channel at a cost to the taxpayer of £7 million a day. You and me both, Christine, and this is why I was talking before about us being asked to just accept things that we can see are idiotic and stupid with our own eyes. How can we have this amount of people when we aren't building houses and we aren't rebuilding our infrastructure? Ricky says, Ricky, we shouldn't be accepting any asylum claims if we don't have the room. Well, people would say, yeah, well, look, Ricky, you know what, you're basically right, actually, because I suppose one of my points is that we are running out of room, and we clearly are, which is why we're using hotels. We've gone up the chain, haven't we? We've gone from bed sits to 1 stars to 2 stars to 3 stars to 4 stars. They will be in the Ritz next. Elisa says, yes, I'm worried about the number of immigrants being ushered into the country, regardless of where they come. Oh, this sounds a bit fruity, Elisa, I'm not going to lie to you. Controlled immigration is fine. People who can support themselves. We do not need any more dossers that bleed the country dry. It's strong stuff, Elisa. It's strong stuff. I mean, I think, as a rule, I kind of get what you're saying, realistically, which is that we maybe, essentially, in a roundabout way, I suppose you're coming into bat for a points-based immigration system, and I'll give you the benefit of the doubt there. Jay says the public has been hoodwinked, and it is a total betrayal to our quality of life and culture. This country is desperate for an alternative party who works for the people. The whole system needs to be addressed. Yes, I'm just getting a little bit of a round of applause for my next guest, who I'll go to shortly, Dominique Samuels. Jay, I'm inclined to agree with you. Part of the issue, though, with our current political system, how on earth would that party get elected? And as we've seen, the massive globalist infrastructure, things like the ECHR and all of this stuff, we're battling against that. Christine says, what are the criteria for acceptance? It would appear just being from Afghanistan, Syria or Eritrea, as far as I can tell. I would also question, Christine, two Christines. We've double Christined on this particular view, unless Christine's been particularly active on the keyboard. It does appear as well, I would ask serious questions about how we know this lot are from where they're from. If they just lob stuff into the channel, like their documents, how on earth do we know? I mean, all right, I mean, to be honest with you, if my rent goes up anymore, I'll be getting in a dinghy and coming over the channel and claiming to be from somewhere. Laz has been on. Laz says their lives are in so much, quote, danger, so they leave their sister, girlfriend, grandma and mother behind. Yes, I suppose that's fair enough, Laz, apart from the fact that I hate to break it to you, mate, but I reckon their sister, girlfriend, grandma and mother are probably already here. But there we are. Right, OK. Thank you very much for all of your views. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Keep them coming in thick and fast. That was Question Mark. But tonight's special edition with me, Patrick Christie's. Ding! OK, we are told lots of things during the pandemic, weren't we? We were told that face masks would stop you from getting the virus. What an absolute con that was, the face nappies. We were told that the vaccines would stop transmission. We were even told that walking in one direction around Tesco's would flatten the curve. And what about the things we weren't told? Like that chief national scientific advisors help cover up the truth about the origins of COVID-19, that leaked emails saw them hot and bothered about maintaining, quote, international harmony and preventing, quote, potential harm to science, rather than actually pursuing the actual truth, which last time I checked was what science was supposed to be about. And just to add to all of this. A former vice president to the Eco-Health Alliance, the US NGO partnered with the Wuhan lab, has spoken out in an upcoming new book in which he reveals that COVID was genetically engineered and leaked from the Wuhan lab, covered with the fingerprints of Anthony Fauci. Well, bit by bit, the COVID idiots, remember them? The COVID conspiracy theorists? Yeah, well, they've all been vindicated, haven't they, Dominic Samuels?
Yes, they've been completely vindicated. I was one of the people from the very start that said that, you know, the Wuhan lab leak theory was credible. Yeah, the likes of Facebook and the likes of Twitter censored all of it. And it seems, especially from these explosive claims from this ex-VP of the Eco-Health Alliance, that the US government knew about this because they were funding research that looked into SARS-CoV-2, which actually causes coronavirus, through gain-of-function research, which is banned in many countries, by the way, because it accelerates the rate at which viruses jump to humans, which explains possibly why COVID-19 is so contagious. But not only that, but scientists in the UK made a concerted effort to actually cover this up. The question is, why would they do this?
Why would they do this? And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, that when you really look back at the trail, the paper trail, or the money trail, really, when it comes to who was doing this funding, and dare I say as well, some experiments that we may or may not know about in this country, and some more of our allies as well, I think there's a bit of a spider's web of deceit taking place. So if you just took a bit of a backward step, if we were aliens, for example, and we were looking down on this from space, and we'd think, OK, so you are trying to tell us, the world, that there's a wet market where, yeah, admittedly, some pretty fruity stuff goes on with animals, and it's a hotbed of disease. Fine, get that. But just next door to it is a laboratory designed to create things like coronaviruses. But it definitely didn't happen there, and the chief medical professionals... I mean, that's nuts, isn't it?
Despite the fact the first detection of corona was just miles from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and it's been said several times now, not just by this whistleblower, that the biosecurity there was completely lax. He even left Eco-Health Alliance in 2016 because of such concerns. But what is so interesting about this is he says that a few years after he actually left, he was offered a role at DARPA, which is a US government agency that deals with developing technologies for the military to use. And he reports being followed when he was out. I mean, I don't know about that, but it does seem like the US government wanted to cover this up and perhaps wanted to shut this guy down. And what's interesting is that so many government agencies colluded with this, even the World Health Organization that was basically singing China's tune.
There's a tweet, by the way, that's still online from the World Health Organization, and it says that there's no proper risk of coronavirus, you know, jumping from human to human. There's no human-to-human transmission. I mean, I can't believe the gall of that, actually, frankly. But, you know, realistically now, when it comes to all of this stuff, people were being told, oh, you can't believe that as conspiracy theorists and you are some kind of whack job. But actually, what has clearly happened is we were being asked to believe China, right? I mean, a country where, let's be honest with you, there's rather a lot of human rights issues. They're not a particularly credible country when it comes to believing what they're actually saying. And on top of all of that as well, we could just see it unfolding before our very eyes, couldn't we? And we were being asked to just forego our freedoms and our money and our finances and our businesses and our children's futures and upbringings and final moments with elderly loved ones. And I find that quite sickening, to be honest with you.
It is sickening, and I think going forward, I personally want criminal investigations and arrests made, because people have died and had their lives ruined as a result of these out-and-out lies, because it's not like nobody was talking about the lab leak theory before this. Even Sir Patrick Vallance.
But it was important for science. But it was important for science. You need to have global harmony and for the credibility of science. Well, the irony is that now science is arguably never been more discredited, because the next time that Chris Whitty stands up and tells me something, I'm sorry with you, but I probably just won't believe it.
Exactly, because we were told that lockdowns worked. Now we're seeing that more people are dying as a result.
We all, sorry to keep cutting across, but it's so true. We all knew that. We were saying at the time, well, hang on a minute, if we lock down now, the economic ruin that's going to be caused and the knock-on health effects are going to outweigh that. I can remember saying things on radio where I was working before, or early days here, where I'd say I think that the deaths are going to outweigh what the amount of people that died during coronavirus. Now I was being told, careful, you need to balance it.
Oh, conspiracy.
Well, it's true now.
Oh, it's all a conspiracy. It turns out that the conspiracy theorists are now the conspiracy factualists in 2022 and beyond. Anything that can be painted as wacky and weird now probably will be true in the years going forward. Even about the climate lockdowns, a council in Oxfordshire is announcing a form of climate lockdown now. And I can say that, you know, people should look at this information that's coming out continually, even with the Hunter Biden laptop files, and realise that you need to question authority. They can call you a conspiracy theorist, they can call you crazy, they can call you dangerous, they can try and shut you down, but you should never, ever break free from a gut feeling that you
go with your gut. You're absolutely bob on. That's what I was leading in with at the top, that we are now, more than ever in society, on numerous different fronts, Dominic, being asked to not believe what we can physically see happening with our own eyes.
What we know to be wrong. Yeah. But I think that's what these people want. They want you to second-guess yourself. They want you to be driven by fear and this fear of being a racist or a bigot, when in reality, your gut knows what's right and what's wrong.
Exactly.
Lockdowns were wrong. COVID probably came from a lab, and we don't want our borders invaded. It's as simple as that.
Well, it should be as simple as that. Unfortunately, not. Dominic, great. So I could talk to you all evening. Thank you very much. The wonderful Dominic Samuels there. And for those of you who can't take any more lies, you might want to look away, because more shocking revelations of big tech censorship as Elon Musk reveals the Twitter files. Eva Vladingerbroek joins us from the Netherlands. Yes, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. I've been a big fan from afar for a while, and now I'm covering for Mark Steyn. I get to chat to you. For our viewers or listeners who've been living on the moon with their fingers in their ears, please just tell us exactly what Elon Musk is revealing at the moment.
Oh, he's revealing not just political bias coming from Twitter, but even what you could call election interference.
OK, well, hold that thought, and that is a wonderful, almost like we planned it and I didn't get it wrong. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, much more of that. There we go. Don't you dare go anywhere.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview channel 236.
And YouView channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, well, you may not have heard anything about it, but Elon Musk has stormed the San Francisco tech bastille, that is Twitter, and released files detailing collusion between the old heads of the platform, US government agencies, and Joe Biden's Democrat in the run-up to the 2020 election. Just take a look at this, OK? Joe Biden's campaign team flags content that they don't like, and Twitter simply handles it. We live in a time of corruption and censorship, but perhaps worst of all is the apathy. Just look at Rolling Stone. A snooze fest, apparently, full of information that we already knew. CNN said something similar, claiming that files largely corroborated what was already known. Hang on a minute, like those largely peaceful protests that you were covering with flaming buildings and people being shot to death behind you. Anyway, we've heard nothing from our media also, have we? There's been a complete and utter blackout. Where's the Telegraph and the BBC on all of this? Twitter is effectively the public square these days. And these files show that the public square has not been so public. It's been managed, monitored and censored to suit the interests of the US liberal elites. And you add that to the fact that we were being told, weren't we, that the Russians hacked Brexit. There was a Netflix documentary about that, not the only dodgy Netflix documentary we're going to be treated to. We were being told that Trump had rigged the election. And now it's all looking as though, shock horror, as with pretty much everything I've spoken about so far tonight, the polar opposite is true. But how long will this cosy setup last now that Elon has taken over? The idea here is to come clean on everything that has happened in the past in order to build public trust for the future. That's what Elon's had to say. And boy, we need some trust. The mainstream media are ignoring this because they know this is just the tip of the iceberg. Here to discuss this covering up of the cover-up is Mark Steyn's favourite Dutch maiden. Wow. Eva Vladingerbroek. Hi, Eva. Right, good stuff. Well, thank you very much. We can actually get stuck into it now as opposed to before when I just threatened to. Right, tell us what's actually been happening, because as far as I'm concerned, this just appears to be like almost everything we were told wasn't true is true.
Right. No, this is an absolute bombshell. You wouldn't know it if you look at the mainstream media, because obviously they're still not talking about it, and we'll come to that in a second. But yeah, if you go onto Twitter and you just go and type in Twitter files, you'll see this long thread from an investigative journalist who has now presented us with proof of what we already knew and felt in our gut all along. Not just that Twitter has been actively censoring conservative voices so that there is actual left-wing political bias coming from Twitter, but also that they have interfered, really, I would say that, with the elections of 2020, because they suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop
But hang on a minute, Eva.
for the elections.
Yeah, Eva, is this not basically criminal? I know the Hunter Biden laptop stuff is actually a lot more complicated than it seems at face value, and we haven't got all evening, but just give us a bit of an overview about what happened there.
Oh, well, I mean, the Hunter Biden stuff, from what I've heard, what could be on there, that's some pretty vile, disgusting stuff that really actually could have hurt Biden's campaign massively coming up the elections. So, and, you know, it was a close call. So if that type of information about all sorts of disgusting pornography on his son's laptop would have actually come out, that could have changed something.
Well, yeah.
And that's information that the public had the right to know about.
Yeah, the public have the right to know.
Censored.
The public have the right to know about it, and crucially, the public have the right to know about it because they need to know what his dad, who was running to be president of the United States, knew about it and may or may not have been complicit in. And if we really get down to brass tacks on this, Eva, Twitter, it would appear, was complicit in covering up the president's son's misdemeanors, to put it mildly, and contributing towards allowing a man who, in my opinion, appears very much to have senile dementia to get the keys to the White House.
Absolutely. It's so funny, right? Every time the left accuses someone else of doing something, remember the Russia collusion story, all of that?
Oh, yeah.
Turns out that they're actually the ones doing that. It always ends up being the same thing. What they accuse other people of doing is the things that they are doing themselves. And this is in This is interference with an election. This should never have happened, but yet it did. And now America is stuck with the senile president that can't form a proper sentence and is falling off his bike.
Yeah, indeed. I am waiting for the day that he just stumbles out of the White House, just wearing nothing but a wide-open dressing gown, just there, just demanding to know the latest result of the Muhammad Ali fight. You know, I can't, and we'll all just have to accept that. We'll all just have to accept that this guy, apparently, is in charge of the nuclear codes, and that is in no way any more dangerous than Orange Man bad. But also there's some stuff about Ukraine and potential business ties there, which I suspect the British public and indeed anyone would find quite interesting to know, wouldn't they?
Oh, absolutely, because all of those lies are still being told by our mainstream media today. And that's, of course, the interesting part about this. This should be a bombshell breaking news story, but only you guys are talking about it, not a word from the BBC, obviously.
No.
Here, all the newspapers, the mainstream media, dead silent. And there's no surprise to that, of course. I think, and actually Elon Musk said it, this is just the beginning. There's much more to come and a whole lot of stuff that they don't want you to know about.
Do you sometimes, Eva, just finally wake up and think that we are living in almost like George Orwell's wet dream, where some of the most liberal people in the world actually turn out to lock you down, like we've had Trudeau, where, as far as I can see, was very, very scared of some people in HGV trucks who wanted to play ice hockey in the streets of Ottawa. That was a national emergency. He froze their bank accounts. People who didn't want to have bodily autonomy, they were demonised. And we've got the fact that Twitter are apparently rigging elections. We're being asked to believe that every single fighting-age man who comes over the channel from a non-war-torn country is indeed actually a little girl from Syria. I mean, sometimes do you ever think, I cannot believe I live in what appears to be the Truman Show?
I know, it could drive you totally insane. I mean, Truman Show, Orwell, Kafka, I don't know which one we're in. Maybe it's a mix of all three, but it gets pretty bad. And you need to stay sane. That's why transparency is so important. That's why GB News is so important. And we just need to keep pushing for the truth because people do know. And I think that you were very right about that with Dominique just now. They have a gut feeling. We know something's wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Look, Eva, thank you very, very much. As always, great to have you on the show. Eva Vlinderbroek there, who has just basically picked the bones out of what is a massive online scandal, as we all knew it was. Up next, are British institutions, traditional British institutions, the beating heart of what is, in my view, the best nation in the world, are they being destroyed from the inside out? We've got Labour talking about the abolition of the House of Lords, a 1,000-year-old institution. The royal family pressured into a stripped-back coronation, the King not being able to defend his own son's godmother from cynical race-baiting, Harry and Meghan hammering the last nail into the coffin with their completely ridiculous Netflix documentary. Oh gosh, yeah, and public schools, private schools, they need to be banned as well, don't they? Is this just the beginning of the end? Put me in a spaceship and jettison me in there now. I've got hereditary peer Lord Monckton. He's here. Yeah, there he is, good lad. He's here to discuss it all. Don't you dare move, people. See you in a sec.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Steyn. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Our institutions are under attack, ladies and gents. Keir Starmer has pledged to abolish the House of Lords. The Lords is by no means perfect, and it's certainly not what it used to be. It's crammed full of cronies, thanks to the Blair creatures reforms, but it has been central to political life on these islands for, well, basically a millennium. Anyway, what does it say about us that the leader of His Majesty's opposition can so breezily commit to an abolishment? Speaking of His Majesty, the King of England now has so little power that he cannot defend his own son's godmother from a cynical stitch-up along racial lines. His own coronation is to be stripped back to reflect modern Britain. That's a damning indictment of modern Britain, isn't it? A stripped-back coronation, Dua Lipa covering Zadok the priest, orb and sceptre being made by Timpsons. I mean, good grief. Gold stage coach swapped for an Albanian cocaine dealer's Range Rover. George Orwell feared England would disconnect from its heritage so much that she would cease to be a country and transition into a kind of blank slate economic zone known as Airstrip 1. Well, we're there, are we? I think we might be. Viscount Monkton of Bletchley is here to us to discuss this evening. Great to have you on the show. I don't believe we've had the pleasure before, so it's an absolute honour to be with you here. Let's just take it apart kind of one institution at a time. How concerned are you about the idea now that we might be about to lose the House of Lords?
Well, first of all, they've already abolished us once. So trying to abolish us again shows we've got more life in us than Mr. Starmer may think. And also, here is the ship going down. The Titanic is sinking. And Starmer, the only policy he can think of is to rearrange the deck chairs by rearranging the abolition of the House of Lords. When Margaret Thatcher came to Peterhouse to give a talk to the Fellows in 1974, and that was the first talk she gave to anyone after she became leader. She was asked by Professor Adrian Mathias, the world's foremost mathematical logician, "What are you going to do about the House of Lords?" And she snorted and said, "I can assure you all that on the long list of things I have to do, we have to save this country from far more serious things. And therefore, I promise you that reform of the House of Lords will be at the very bottom of my lowest list of priorities."
Exactly.
And that's where it should have been for Sir Keir Starmer. So, no, I'm not frightened that the House of Lords will go. Of course it won't. It will be changed. And it will be changed if Keir Starmer and Gordon Brown get their way in accordance with Sir Oswald Mosley's manifesto of 1936, Tomorrow We Live, which advocated precisely the occupational and geographical franchise that is now being recommended by Gordon Brown.
Well, it's fascinating stuff. And how do you feel about another great institution, arguably the great institution, the royal family, the monarchy, being torn asunder because either it's too afraid to come and hit out at just baseless racism claims from a woman who doesn't even have a real name, deliberately dressed in, I would argue, what would you say, traditional garb, apparently runs a charity that allegedly refuses to actually help people who are white, and has a track record of making up claims against the royal family. We can't push back against her. And meanwhile, we've got Whinge and Ginge over in stateside, Harry and Meghan, who are just teeing off. And I'm worried that the royal family, the institution, is crumbling now as a result of this.
Well, again, it has shown itself to be very vigorous, and God bless Her Majesty the Queen as was, because she was really the saving of the monarchy, and I think she gave it such a fair wind that, despite the many attempts now to undermine it, I think it will survive. And I think that the way Lady Hussey was treated was outrageous. And after all, she's 85. And you don't start getting all hot and bothered over somebody who's 85 and is just doing her best to make polite conversation. Even, you know, and as you say, this was a confected, manufactured complaint, which is, of course, the way that the left now operate. It's all about dividing one person from another. And, of course, what they don't realise is that the ultimate consequence of dividing us into L and G and B and T and Q and A and I and plus and Q and W and E and R and T and U and I and O and P is the more you do that, the more you start treating people as individuals, which is something that socialism has never done before. So what you're seeing is that socialism has begun to realise it can no longer treat us all as robots. It has to treat us all as individuals. Its way of going about it is characteristically clumsy and malevolent. But nevertheless, this endless campaigning towards dividing us into ever smaller minorities, in the end, treats us all as individuals. And that's a very good start.
When you look outside your window, do you recognise Britain?
Well, when I look outside my window, there is an ancient duck pond full of two kinds of duck, and we have the squirrels in the trees and the birds singing exactly as it was probably 500 to 1,000 years ago. So when I look outside my window, all is well with the world. And in general, in the countryside, that is the case. In the towns, which is where the left have always traditionally managed to whip up everybody's grievances, it is very different now. But do not write off the common sense and sense of fair play of the British people. People are getting very, very tired of woke attacks. For instance, if you attack the public schools, that's another one on the list. He wants to start charging tax on the public schools. The effect of that is that about a third of the public schools will no longer be viable. They will close. Where will their pupils then have to go? They'll have to go to the state sector, which will have to pay for them.
Oh, look, fantastic stuff. I could speak to you all evening. Viscount Monkton of Brenchley there. Very quickly, Pummel the Patrick, which sounds more homoerotic than I would have liked. Where are you from? Asked Cal. Cheshire is the answer to that. And Alex has put some very kind words about my monologue in there, but I've got no time for Pummel the Patrick. Just as well, I'm not quite in the mood. Dan Watson joins me for Dan Watson Tonight. Dan, what do you got coming up?
Well, we're going to continue that discussion you were just having, Patrick, about this woman, you know, Ngozi Fulani, and whether her claims of, quote-unquote, racism and abuse at Buckingham Palace were actually so flammed up that we have just, as a society, cancelled a very brilliant woman, Lady Susan Hussey, for no good reason. So Petronella Wyatt is here. She has been close to Lady Hussey for many, many years. She says if Lady Susan Hussey is a racist, then she is an ornamental fountain. So we are going to be putting the side of the story, Patrick, that you're not getting anywhere else in the media, plus my reaction, and I know you hated it watching you earlier, Patrick, to that trailer, the Harry Meghan trailer.
Oh, my days. Yeah, I actually struggle to keep it together. The problem with that old Dano is I will be watching it. I will be glued to it because I have to be, even though I know I'm going to hate it. Look, thank you very much, everybody. I hope I have done Mark Steyn proud standing in for him. I'll be back tomorrow from 3 p.m. with the Patrick Christie Show right here on GB News. Take it easy, people.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Easterly winds have made it feel cold during the last few days, but in the next 24 hours, northerly winds arrive, which will turn things even colder, along with some significant snow in the north of Scotland. For the time being, we keep the easterlies, at least for the next 12 hours in places. Those easterlies continuing to bring some showers, rain showers that is, into eastern parts of England. The showers in the Midlands tending to fade away, and the showers just along the south coast there, so for Kent, for parts of Cornwall, also tending to fade away through the night. But showers do continue for northern Scotland, rain and hill snow here, and clear spells breaking out elsewhere will bring, in places, a touch of frost, especially for Northern Ireland, into northern England, North Wales, East Anglia. But a bright start where we get a frost. Away from the frostier areas, still some cloud about for southern parts of the UK, and more especially the east and the far north. Here, there'll continue to be showers, but this time the showers brought by an increasing northerly wind. As a result, it's going to feel cold on Tuesday afternoon. Temperatures on the thermometer, 7 or 8 in the south, 4 or 5 in the north, but take off a few degrees for what it will feel like in the wind, more like the low to mid single figures. And it turns even colder on Tuesday night. By midnight, the showers increasingly falling as snow at all levels for northern Scotland. The snow really building up here on Tuesday night and into Wednesday. There'll also be showers into the east of England, parts of Northern Ireland, where we see those showers coming and going. Perhaps some icy patches as we start off Wednesday. Certainly a widespread frost across Western England, Northern England, Southern Scotland and Wales. -3, -4 Celsius in places. But a bright start in these locations.